So we've learned quite a lot up to date with both spacecraft, with the Rosetta orbiter and also the Philae lander. The first thing that really surprised us was the shape of the comet. So we were expecting something more like a potato, a fairly regular shape, and immediately when we arrived we could see that this was a crazy shape with these two lobes that stuck together. It looks a bit like a rubber duck spinning around in space. And so that started all sorts of questions about, was this one single comet that then has eroded to make this shape, or is it two bodies that are stuck together? And we're still trying to answer these questions. But the main purpose of Rosetta is to see how the comet evolves over time. And that's what we've been really doing. We've been waiting to see it wakes up. So as the comet gets closer to the sun, it produces more gas and dust. And so we've been measuring the composition to find out what it's made of. And we've learnt that the comet is quite dark. We expected this. It's relatively warm, not so much surface ice on the actual top layer, but of course there's lots of ices underneath, and we've been measuring the composition of those ices, and we're now beginning to see changes happening over the surface as the comet reaches the sun. Now it gets really exciting because the primary mission for Philae, the lander, was due to be the 60 hours once its batteries were full, and then we expected to wait some days or weeks and then be able to make measurements again. And then eventually, of course, the lander would overheat as the comet got closer to the sun, and that would be the end of it. Now, because the lander didn't quite land where we expected and didn't anchor itself, of course, things have turned out a little differently. So now the lander has woken up again, and we've been making contact over the last few days and weeks. It's really exciting because we get to study the comet from the surface at a phase of its activity that we didn't expect at all. So the first thing we have to do is to make stable contact with Philae. So we've had periodic radio messages so far, and we've learned that it's in very good shape. Its batteries are good, it's getting enough sunlight. So now we just have to put the orbiter, the mothership, into the right position that we can make a regular contact. And then we can start doing all the science that we hope to do. So there's a whole sequence of long-term measurements, starting with the instruments that don't have too many moving pieces. So we'll measure the magnetic field at the comet, we'll measure the temperature of the comet's surface, and then we'll move on to the more complex measurements. So we'll be hopefully using the drill to get a sample from beneath the surface, which was something that we haven't managed yet, but which is really something that only Philae can do. And then we'll look at that sample with the instruments on board to look at what it's made of, how it looks, and and hopefully provide a real ground truth measurement to what the Rosetta orbiter is able to do. There's a lot of papers being published just at this moment, and these cover the results from the very early phases of the mission. So it takes quite a long time to put together all the results from different instruments and make a picture. And so that's what we're working on now. Of course, with Philae having woken up, there's a lot more to come in the coming weeks and days. So as soon as we start operations again on the surface, then you should get more results published, at least the initial results, online.